Pack your things, Lily. You're done here. Dean's voice sliced through the glass conference room like a knife. Everyone froze. I stood at the end of the table, my project folder still warm from my hands as his words echoed. He leaned back in Dad's old chair, the same one that used to smell like aftershave and sawdust. My throat tightened. He smirked. This proposal is a disaster. I can't keep cleaning up your mistakes. A few people looked down. No one spoke. The folder I'd spent 3 months building slid off the table and hit the floor. Dean didn't even glance at it. "This is your father's company," I whispered, my voice trembling. "Our company." He shrugged. "Correction. It's my company now." He laughed, a sharp, ugly sound, and the board members forced smiles. My hand shook, but I refused to cry. "I built that project," I said. He stood, straightening his tie. "And I just built your exit." The laughter returned, louder this time. My heart pounded. I wanted to shout, to tell them all he'd stolen my work. But I didn't. I just looked at him and said quietly, "You'll regret this, Dean. One day you'll wish you hadn't." He rolled his eyes. "Don't hold your breath, sis." I walked out of that room in silence. The glass walls made it worse. Everyone could see me. People whispered as I passed. My heels clicked against the floor, loud enough to fill the building. At my desk, I packed slowly. My mug. My planner. The photo of me and Dad at the ribbon-cutting ceremony. I remembered how proud he'd looked that day, his hand on my shoulder. He'd said, "You'll take this company further than I ever could." Now his words felt like a cruel joke. Dean had taken everything, the company, my confidence, even the memory of Dad's pride. He stopped at my office door while I packed. "Don't make this dramatic, Lily. We both know you were never cut out for this." I clenched my jaw. "You're wrong." He smiled faintly. "No. I'm just honest." After he left, I sat for a while. The room felt smaller than ever. Then I picked up my box and walked out, past the same receptionist who once told me, "You're the heart of this place." I forced a smile. "Not anymore," I said. As the elevator doors closed, I caught my reflection, eyes red, lips trembling. For the first time, I didn't see a leader. I saw a fool. That night, I sat in my car outside the building, staring at the lights still on in Dean's office. Pain burned deeper than anger. It was betrayal. He'd used my ideas, my late nights, my loyalty, and made me the villain. My phone buzzed with messages from coworkers. "Sorry, Lily. I had no choice." He said it was corporate restructuring. Corporate restructuring. What a fancy way to say, "We don't need you anymore." When I finally started the car, I didn't go home. I drove to the old construction yard Dad used to bring us to as kids. Cranes stood like ghosts against the sky. I sat on the hood, staring up, and whispered, "You'd be ashamed of us, Dad." The night air was cold, but it cleared my head. Somewhere inside, I made a quiet promise, not of revenge, but of truth. He thought firing me ended my story. He had no idea it was the beginning. My name is Lily Carter, and for 10 years I helped build Carter Construction. Not with money or speeches, but with my hands, my heart, and my ideas. After Dad passed away, I thought Dean and I would run the company together. He was charming, confident, good with people. I was steady, careful, and obsessed with details. We were supposed to balance each other. But over time, I saw something change in him. He started talking about my company instead of our company. He started locking his office door, holding meetings without me. When I brought it up, Mom brushed it off. "He's just under pressure, honey. You know how boys are when they want to prove themselves." I wanted to believe her. So I stayed loyal. Kept working, kept fixing his mistakes, kept cleaning up his messes. But loyalty is a dangerous thing when it's only flowing one way. By the time I realized it, it was too late. Dean didn't just want the company. He wanted me out of it. The next morning, I went to clear out the last few boxes from my office. The building felt colder, emptier. I moved quietly so I wouldn't run into anyone. As I reached for my old project files, a yellow folder fell from the top shelf. It slid open on the floor, and what I saw made my blood freeze. Receipts, duplicates, fake invoices, all signed by Dean. My heart raced. I flipped through the papers, payments to companies I didn't recognize, thousands of dollars for consulting services that didn't exist. He was stealing from his own employees. From our father's company. I sank into my chair, shaking. Every lie he told, every insult, every smug smirk, it all made sense now. He didn't fire me because I was bad at my job. He fired me because I was getting too close. A voice broke my thoughts, the receptionist. Lily? Mr. Hendricks from the Hendricks Group called. He said he wants to speak to you. Mark Hendricks. Our biggest client. My pulse quickened. Maybe fate wasn't done with me yet. I picked up my phone. Tell him I'll be right there. And for the first time in days, I smiled. Mark Hendricks had always been my father's favorite client, sharp, fair, the kind of man who kept his word. I hadn't spoken to him in months. When I stepped into his office, his face softened. Lily, he said. I heard what happened. Pity in his eyes stung more than the words. I'm fine, I lied. He leaned forward. No, you're not. But you will be. He tapped the folder on his desk, the same logo that sat on every Carter construction truck. Your brother sent us inflated invoices. Again. I was hoping to handle it quietly, but maybe you're the one I should be talking to. I blinked. You know about that? He nodded. And I know your father would never have let this happen. Something broke open inside me. For the first time since Dad's death, someone saw the truth. What do you need from me? I asked. He smiled slightly. I need someone I can trust to fix this mess. From our side. My heart skipped. You won't hire me? No, he said. I want to partner with you. That single word, partner, wrapped around me like warmth after a storm. Dean had fired me to erase me. But fate had just written me back in. I spent that night at my kitchen table, surrounded by folders, invoices, and coffee cups. The city outside was asleep, but my mind was wide awake. Every line I traced led back to Dean. False names, fake companies, double billing, the evidence was all there. He thought no one would ever find it. He was wrong. Still, I didn't want revenge. Not yet. I wanted truth. I wanted justice, for Dad, for the people still working under Dean's thumb, for myself. The next morning I called Mark. I'm in, I told him. He replied, good. We start tomorrow. I hung up and stared at my reflection in the window. I looked tired, bruised. But underneath that, I saw something else, resolve. I took a deep breath and whispered, You took my pride, Dean. Now I'm taking your power. Walking back into that building 3 weeks later felt like stepping into a memory that no longer belonged to me. Everything smelled the same. The polish, the paper, even the faint scent of Dad's cologne that still lingered in the hall. The receptionist's eyes went wide when she saw the badge clipped to my blazer. Hendricks Group, she whispered. I smiled. I'm here for the audit. Dean's office door opened. Color drained from his face. What are you doing here? I held up the file. Corporate oversight. Hendricks has new terms. He laughed, that same cruel laugh. You can't be serious. I am, I said softly. Very. For the first time, I saw fear flicker behind his arrogance. Just a spark, but enough. Clenched his jaw. Fine. Play your little game. Just remember who you're dealing with. I do, I said, walking past him. My brother. But this time, I wasn't the same sister he once dismissed. This time I had nothing left to lose and everything to prove. Dean tried to act calm in the first audit meeting. He cracked jokes, called me kiddo in front of the team, trying to make me small again. But this time I didn't bite. Instead, I smiled and let him speak. Every time he opened his mouth, I wrote something down. Every trust me, every that's not important, all of it. Team noticed. The room grew quieter. By the end of the meeting, even his assistant avoided his eyes. When it was over, Dean cornered me. You think you can humiliate me? I met his glare. No. You're doing that all by yourself. He froze. I walked away. That night, I sat in my car and cried, not from sadness, but from release. For the first time, I felt control return to my hands. Dad once said, "Power isn't loud, Lily. It's steady." And steady was exactly how I planned to be. Mom called that weekend. I hadn't spoken to her since I was fired. "Lily, what are you doing?" she demanded. "Dean told me you're working against him." "I'm not," I said quietly. "I'm working for the company. The one Dad built. You're tearing this family apart." I bit back tears. "No, Mom. Dean did that when he lied." She sighed, her voice trembling. "He's your brother. You're supposed to protect him." I closed my eyes. I did. 4 years. But he doesn't need protection anymore. He needs consequences. There was silence on the line. Then a soft, broken whisper. "You sound just like your father." That night, I sat alone at my dining table, surrounded by stacks of proof. I wasn't fighting for revenge anymore. I was fighting to restore my father's name and my own. But somewhere deep inside, I knew this wouldn't end quietly. Because men like Dean never surrender. They crash. And I was ready to watch him fall. Every day that week, Dean grew more agitated. His jokes got sharper, his temper shorter. The staff started whispering. I didn't fuel it, I didn't need to. Truth spreads on its own. One morning, during a team meeting, Dean stumbled over a presentation slide. His numbers didn't add up. He tried to laugh it off, but I calmly corrected him, showing the real figures, the ones I'd verified the night before. The room went dead silent. Dean's smile faded. "Where did you get those numbers?" "From the files your assistant sent me," I said, meeting his eyes. "You asked for transparency, remember?" Clenched his jaw and moved on. But after that day, everyone in the office looked at him differently. The golden boy was slipping. After work, I stood in the parking lot, breathing in the cold air. I should have felt victorious. But instead, I felt a strange ache, like something inside me was breaking too. He was still my brother. And I was dismantling him piece by piece. Mark and I met every evening in his office, reviewing the audit results. He trusted me completely, and for the first time in years, I felt seen, not as Dean's sister, but as Lily Carter, the woman who knew how to fix what her father built. One night, Mark looked at me and said, "You ever think about running it?" I laughed softly. "Running what?" "The company. The right way." My heart jumped, but I pushed it down. Dean would never let that happen. He smiled. "He doesn't have to. The numbers will speak." That night, as I drove home, I replayed his words over and over. Running it. Could I really do that? Could I stand where my father once stood? When I got home, I found an envelope under my door. No name, no address. Inside was a single sheet of paper. "You think you're smart. Stay out of this, or you'll regret it." I froze. The handwriting, I'd know it anywhere. It was Dean's. The next day, I confronted him in his office. "You left something at my place," I said, holding up the note. He looked at it, smirked, then leaned back in his chair. "You can't prove that." I took a step closer. "Why? Because you're used to scaring people into silence?" His smile faded. "You don't know what you're dealing with, Lily." "Actually, I do," I said quietly. I'm dealing with a liar who stole from his own family. He slammed his hand on the desk, making me flinch. You want to destroy me? Go ahead. But when this all blows up, don't come crying to me. I stared at him for a long time. I stopped crying the day you fired me. I turned to leave. But as I reached the door, he said, Dad would be ashamed of you. I froze. My throat tightened, but I didn't turn around. No, I whispered. He'd be ashamed of you. And for the first time, Dean didn't have a comeback. The audit results came in a week later. The report was thick, pages and pages of missing funds, double accounts, fake vendors. Mark slid the file across the table to me. It's all here, he said. Enough to remove him. My hand shook as I turned each page. It wasn't just about money. It was betrayal in black and white. Lily, Mark said softly, once this goes public, there's no going back. I looked out the window. The city lights shimmered below, cold and distant. He destroyed Dad's legacy. I'm just restoring it. Mark nodded. Then tomorrow we move. I left his office with the file pressed to my chest, my heart pounding. That night I didn't sleep. I sat in the dark, staring at Dad's old watch on my wrist. Tomorrow, I whispered to the silence. Tomorrow he falls. But deep down, a quiet fear whispered back, what if I fall with him? The morning came heavy and gray, like the sky itself knew what was coming. When I walked into the boardroom, every seat was filled. The executives, the partners, even Mom sat in the back, looking pale. Dean stood at the head of the table, his usual confidence cracked around the edges. Mark began. After a full financial review, we found serious discrepancies under Dean Carter's management. The room buzzed. Dean tried to interrupt, but Mark held up a hand. Please let the numbers speak. He turned to me. Lily, would you do the honors? My heart thudded in my chest as I opened the folder. My hands didn't shake this time. I laid out the evidence, the false invoices, the missing money, the fake contractors. By the time I finished, the room was silent. Dean's face was ashen. Finally, Mark said, effective immediately, Dean Carter is suspended pending investigation. Dean looked at me, hurt, furious, small. You did this, he whispered. I met his eyes. No, Dean. You did. Dean didn't leave the office that day. He stayed long after the meeting ended, pacing behind the glass wall like a ghost. I watched from the hallway as people whispered around him, avoiding eye contact. The same people who once laughed at his jokes now looked at him with pity, or worse, indifference. When he finally came out, his face was pale, his tie loose. You think you've won, he muttered, brushing past me. I didn't reply. I just let him walk away. But when I stepped into Dad's old office later, I froze. Dean had trashed it, papers torn, picture frames shattered, our father's photo lying face down on the floor. I knelt, picking it up carefully. Dad's smile, forever frozen in that old frame, felt like a knife in my chest. For a long time, I just sat there on the carpet, the chaos around me echoing my heart. I didn't want this war. But Dean had chosen it. Mom called that night. What are you doing to your brother? She demanded. He's a wreck. I closed my eyes. Mom, he stole from the company. From Dad's company. Her voice cracked. He made mistakes. But family forgives. I swallowed hard. Family doesn't fire their own sister and laugh about it, Mom. There was silence. Then she whispered, You've changed, Lily. I looked out my window at the city glowing below. No, I said softly. I just stopped letting him change who I am. After she hung up, I cried for the first time in weeks, not out of regret but exhaustion. Dean had turned our family into a battlefield. And no matter how right I was, everyone would still bleed. But deep down, I knew something else. I wasn't done yet. The next morning, I walked into the office and everything felt different. The whispers had shifted. This time, they followed me. Is she taking over? Did she plan this? The air was thick with rumors. I ignored them, heading straight for Mark's office. He looked up with a calm smile. You ready? For what? He slid a folder across the desk, a contract stamped with the board seal. The board voted last night. They want you to serve as interim CEO until Dean's case is resolved. My heart stopped. Me? You earned it, Mark said. And honestly, you're the only one who can fix what he broke. I sat there, staring at the paper, feeling every emotion hit me at once: disbelief, fear, pride, sadness. When I finally signed my name, my hands trembled. I wasn't just taking over the company. I was taking back my life. The next morning, I wore Dad's old watch. When I walked through the glass doors, everyone stood. The same office where Dean once humiliated me, now silent, waiting for my words. I smiled, steady and calm. Good morning, I said. Let's rebuild. Every heartbeat felt heavy. I remembered the look on Dean's face the day he fired me. The laughter. The mockery. Now I stood in the same spot, but stronger, not because I wanted revenge, but because I wanted peace. After the meeting, Mark came to me. He won't take this quietly, he warned. I know, I said. But I'm done running. That night, I walked into Dad's old office again, this time cleaned, restored, glowing. I placed the photo back on the desk. Your daughter made it, Dad, I whispered. Even when no one believed she could. 2 days later, Dean barged into my office. His eyes were bloodshot, his suit wrinkled. So, this is it, he spat. You get to play boss now? I kept my voice calm. It's not about playing, Dean. It's about saving what's left. He slammed his hand on my desk. You think you're better than me? I stood slowly, meeting his glare. No. I just stopped being afraid of you. His chest heaved. You ruined my life. You did that yourself, I said quietly. All I did was stop cleaning up your mess. For a moment, he looked lost, like a little boy again, scared and angry. Then his expression hardened. This isn't over. I watched him storm out, his words echoing down the hall. I knew he meant it. But this time I was ready. Dean's threats didn't scare me anymore, but they still echoed. Days passed, and the investigation deepened. The evidence piled higher than either of us could deny. And when the board announced an emergency meeting, I knew what it meant. Dean didn't show up. Halfway through the meeting, his assistant burst in, pale and shaking. He's outside, she whispered. When I stepped out, I saw him, sitting on the stairs, head in his hands. The man who once stood above everyone now looked small. He glanced up. You happy now? I sat beside him quietly. No, Dean. This doesn't make me happy. He let out a bitter laugh. Then what was all this for? For the truth, I said softly. For Dad. For me. He didn't reply, just stared at the ground as security came to escort him inside. Watching him go, I felt a sting of pity. Not because he didn't deserve it, but because I remembered the brother who used to protect me from bullies. That version of him was gone. And I wasn't sure who killed him first, greed or pride. The hearing was brutal. The auditors laid everything out, the accounts, the shell companies, the withdrawals. Dean tried to talk his way out, but no one believed him anymore. The charm that once carried him through every situation was gone. When the chairman asked for final words, he looked at me instead of them. You think they'll love you when this is over? He said, voice shaking. You'll end up just like me. I met his gaze. Maybe. But I'll never be dishonest. The vote was unanimous. Dean was officially removed from the company. He stood up slowly, like his body weighed 1,000 pounds. When he passed me, he whispered, "Enjoy my scraps." I didn't answer. I just looked around that boardroom, the one where he'd once humiliated me, and realized how far I'd come. not out of revenge, but survival. Still, as he walked out for the last time, a tear slipped down my cheek. Justice wasn't supposed to hurt this much. For weeks, the office was quiet. Too quiet. I focused on rebuilding, reviewing policies, cutting unnecessary expenses, promoting honest workers Dean had overlooked. Slowly, the company began to breathe again. One afternoon, Mark walked in with 2 coffees. "You did it," he said, smiling. I exhaled. "It doesn't feel like victory." He nodded. "Because you cared. That's what makes you different." He left, and I sat alone for a while, staring at the photo on Dad's desk. "You'd hate how this ended," I whispered. "But I hope you'd still be proud." A knock broke my thoughts. A young intern peeked in nervously. "Miss Carter? Someone's waiting for you downstairs." When I went down, I saw Dean leaning against the wall outside the lobby. He looked thinner, worn out, like the world had drained him. "I came to say goodbye," he said quietly. "I'm leaving town." I swallowed hard. "Take care of yourself." He gave me a tired smile. "Guess you were always the stronger one." For the first time, he didn't sound angry. Just human. After Dean left, something in me finally settled. Constant ache, the need to prove myself, began to fade. Weeks turned into months. Profits rose. The staff smiled again. One morning, I stood at the same window my father once did, sunlight spilling across the glass table. The city buzzed below, alive and full of possibility. Mark came in, holding a small velvet box. "A gift," he said. Inside was a simple gold pin, engraved with my initials. "For leading with heart," he said. Tears filled my eyes. I'd fought, lost, rebuilt, and finally earned peace. That night, I visited Dad's grave. The autumn air was cool, the sky streaked pink and gold. "I did it, Dad," I whispered. "Your company's safe now." I placed the gold pin beside his name and smiled through the tears. For the first time in years, I wasn't fighting anyone, not even myself. A year later, our company was thriving again. We opened new branches, hired good people, rebuilt our name from the ashes. Sometimes people asked about my brother. I'd just say, "He's finding his own path." And I meant it. Because forgiveness wasn't about forgetting, it was about freeing myself. On the anniversary of my first day as CEO, I stood before the entire team. My voice trembled, but my heart didn't. "When someone tries to break you," I said, "sometimes the best revenge isn't payback. It's standing tall and refusing to fall." The room erupted in applause. I looked around, remembering the shy girl who once cried in the bathroom after being fired. She was gone. In her place stood a woman who learned that power doesn't come from titles, it comes from knowing your worth. As the cheers echoed, I looked up, whispered a quiet thank you to Dad, and smiled. Because in the end, I didn't just take back the company. I took back myself.